I am the Frugal Crafter, which means I do a lot of recycling in my crafts, and today I'm going to show you some of my favorite recycling tips so that you can put less garbage in the trash or in the recycling bin and save money and have more fabulous art materials to work with. First thing I'm going to do is show you how to make your own pattern chipboard. This is just a piece I cut off of a veggie burger box. It's just thin, lightweight chipboard, and I've got a scrap of pattern paper, and I am going to just use a glue stick to cover the back of the pattern paper with glue, and I am going to stick it on my box. This is just a 7 Gypsies text paper, and I like this because I can just ink it up when I'm ready to use it to make it match my layout. I'm using my Big Shot here. Turn it around so it's kind of whoa, there we go. I know you're crafting with Lindsay now, stuff is hitting the floor. Okay, so I'm going to use this die by Physics. It's little leaves. I'm going to place it face down on my paper, put my plexiglass plate on top, and crank it through my machine. I like these thick dies because the thick dies can be used on felt, chipboard, metal, just about anything. If you just have a thin dies, you can do this. You'll want to crank it back and forth a couple times to make sure it goes through all the layers like we did in my button video. And here we have the chipboard shapes. We're going to use them in a card in a minute, so you'll get a close-up at them. It's one of my favorite recycling tips, and it's basically free. I mean, you're using a scrap of paper that you would otherwise maybe toss, and you're using cardboard, chipboard that you would throw away. And another neat thing is a lot of times the chipboard that comes in food packaging is acid-free. I have an acid-free pen, and I'll show you that in a minute. And you can actually test materials before you use them to know if they have acid in them or not. But if you're just using them in a card, there's really no harm because it'll be tossed eventually. In your scrapbooks, you might want to be a little more picky, but as far as card making goes, it works great. Now we will make a card in just a second. Okay, one of the recyclables I use in my craft room a lot are magazines. This is just an old Better Homes and Gardens, and I have quite a sophisticated magazine recycling program. I subscribe to a lot of craft magazines, and any ones I'm not published in, I hand off to my friends and relatives at craft. They pass them along to their friends and relatives at craft, so the magazines do get passed around a lot. And but there are certain ones that, you know, will get passed along a couple times, and then, you know, nobody really wants them anymore. So that's what I use in my craft room. And I use them for areas where I want to work on a project, but I want to protect my work surface. So here's another reason that I save my magazines. Magazines like Newsweek and Time have a lot of text. So what you can do with those types of magazines is tear out a page and paint it with gesso, which is a flat acrylic type paint that is designed for absorbing other materials. And if you don't have gesso, you could actually use flat like wall or ceiling paint or flat acrylic primer. That will work just fine for this technique, and I'm going to show you a technique called the gesso technique. So what I'm going to do first is take a scrap of foam mat, and you could use a mouse pad, and I'm going to stick that on top of my magazine, and I'm going to use a silhouette style stamp. This one's by About Art Accents, and I'm going to ink it up in clear ink. And I want to make sure it's nice and shiny. That means I inked my stamp properly. This will work with any bold stamp. And I am going to stamp it. And I'm going to press it really hard because I want to make sure that I really get every area pressed down onto my paper because it's hard to see because it's clear ink that I'm using. When I go to re-ink my ink pads, I use plain glycerin. You can mix it with a little bit of rubbing alcohol if it's too thick, but that makes a perfect embossing ink, and it's so very environmentally friendly. You can buy a big bottle of it at the Natural Living Center, your Natural Living stores, health food stores, even drugstores you can get it. You might have to get it in the suppository section in a drugstore, but I usually just got mine at the health food store because you can use it in candy making as well. Alright, I am dumping off my excess embossing powder. This is just clear embossing powder, and I'm going to heat it up. Just make sure when you heat it up that you melt all the powder. Just hold it to the light and you can see where it's getting glossy. Okay, I have heated up all my embossing powder, and now I am going to color my image. And I'm going to use these little daubers that I made out of clothespins and foam, and they work just great for for applying ink, and I'll show you how to make these real quick. What you need is a clothespin, old-fashioned kind. They also can be called doll clothespins. And you need a little fun foam. I had a bunch of white fun foam left over from a Halloween project one year, so you want to cut it in kind of like an X with a big center. And you want to put a little bit of cotton. This is just a little bit of a cotton ball in the middle. Put it on top of the clothespin head. Pull down the little legs of the X that you made and wrap it tightly with a rubber band. Now, I made a bunch of these. I bought a bag of clothespins at the dollar store and made a bunch, so I have a different pin for every color. I sort them. I just keep them on this little tin where I also keep my often used supplies, so they're always ready to go. And since I used white foam, I can see what color of ink I used on that so I don't cross-contaminate my ink pads. So what I'm going to do first is grab some Summer Sun ink, and I'm just going to go on and rub my paper with it. The nice thing about the gesso is that it almost acts as a barrier and strengthens my paper, so it's not going to pill or get damaged by rubbing this vigorously. Now I'm going to go in with this only orange. You can use whatever dye-based ink pads you have. I am using these Stampin' Up! Ones because they're handy, and I have these. And then I'm going to grab some pumpkin pie, and I'm going around the edges, just getting darker as I go. You don't have to use 3 colors, 2 would be fine. The darker the color, the more intense of an effect you'll get. And you can really see the design start to come through now. You can go back in and blend in a second. And I hear chattering on the other end of the basement, which means one of my children have come down to investigate what Mummy is working on. Okay, I'm going to go back in with my yellow, and I'm going to go in the center here and blend it a little bit. Before I dip back into my yellow ink pad, though, I am going to scribble it out on my paper to get off the orange ink. Just make sure you do that in between times, and you will be all set. You won't cross-contaminate your ink. Now you'll want to remove some. You'll want to remove some of the ink from the design, from the embossed areas, and you'll do that by using a towel. See, that's another thing you can do, recycling. Old towels, old clothes that aren't nice enough to pass along or to send off to Goodwill, you can cut them up and make beautiful studio towels. You can wash them and reuse them, unlike a paper towel, which kind of gets used once and then goes in the trash. So that's my other green tip, another one. So save your fabric, scraps from old clothes. They make wonderful towels. And I'm going to trim this out, and we're going to use it in a card in a minute. Isn't that cool looking? Hopefully it's not too shiny and you can really see. Alright, we are going to use another recycled material now. Here I have a piece of watercolor paper that's been folded, and I've got it on top of my magazine surface. And we're going to use some watercolor crayons. You can use regular watercolors too, but I have my crayons here, so I'm going to use those. And I'm going to start just by scribbling some greens and blues on my watercolor card. Just a piece of watercolor paper folded in half. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I don't want to press too hard because I don't want to make lines on my paper. I want it to be just kind of there. I want it to really turn into paint when I paint on it. I don't want to have a bunch of scribbly lines. Alright, I think I'm going to use bright green too. So I'll throw a little bit of that in there. And I need a brush, so excuse me one moment while I grab a paintbrush from the other side of my paper room. And this will do just fine. Not really a watercolor brush, but it'll do the trick. And I'm just going to turn this into a little paint here. Notice I'm leaving kind of a raw edge. That'll just give me kind of like an artsy look. And if I scrub it a little bit, I'm lifting up the paint so I get more paint and less pigmenty lines here. This is just a background anyway, so I'm not going to fuss over it too much. Rinse off my brush good between colors, go into the greens. You're probably wondering, how in the heck is she going to make a decent card with all this junk? But trust me, it'll be good, I hope, I think. I haven't made the card yet, but I'm trusting it's going to be a good one. Alright, so we have got the background here, and I never throw away my credit cards or gift cards. I always chop them up, and I use them for paint scrapers. And oh, I've got a daughter down here. Hang on a second, and I will be with you. I'm going to scrape some lines into my watercolor paint here.
In your video.
She wants to be in my video. You want to scrape some lines, honey? Come here, scrape some lines. This is Lila. She's going to scrape some lines. Scrape some lines on Mommy's card.
Like that.
Yes, so easy. A 6-year-old can do it, folks. Yep. If you press a certain way, you'll get white lines. If you press another way, it'll make the lines darker. Yeah, just keep scraping. Oops, use this end. This is stronger. Here you go. Oh, that'll work. Oh, that's looking nice.
Is this supposed to be grass?
Yes, it is supposed to be grass.
I never thought I'd make it like this.
Well, now you know. Okay, I think that's enough grass. That looks really good. I'm going to hold it up closer to the camera so you can see the lovely grass.
Mommy?
All right. Oh, lovely guitar sticker. Maybe we'll put that on the card. That might be an interesting twist.
Or glasses or stars?
Yeah, okay.
But it could be, you could put stars on the top.
I certainly could. All right. I'm going to use a toothbrush. I always save the old toothbrushes because they can be used for cleaning. They can also be used for speckling with your paint. And look, I found this one. Has my name on it. I love it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my watercolor crayon and I'm going to apply paint right to my brush like this. And then I'm going to flick it onto my picture. Oh, that looks kind of cool. I think I need a darker color though. Excuse me, honey, I need to grab a green. Another green crayon that's a little bit darker, I think. Let's try this one.
Just like that.
Yes. You're hijacking my video, dear. There, so now we got some cool specks. I'll speck some blue into the sky.
Can I try it?
Sure.
So how do I do it?
Just run the crayon over the toothbrush. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. You're getting into my ink pads, dear. Alright, there we go. We got some nice speckling there.
And then you have had to do it.
Or you can even use your fingers and go like that. Now we're going to set this aside to dry, and we are going to work with something else. And see how the magazine has protected my work surface for the most part.
Yeah.
Alright, that's drying.
Can we watch it?
Yes, we can. Alright, so now we're going to use our chipboard embellishments that we made a few minutes ago, and we're going to ink that.
Let's try that.
Yes, let's try it. Okay, you can either directly ink it by going like that.
Mom,
that works pretty good. Or we can use one of our
every single day.
No, I don't. Not every day.
Both days.
Or you can use a little ink applicator like this and apply ink to it. I think I just like direct inking it a little bit better.
It's fun being in videos.
Yes, it is. Sharing the love of crafting.
Can I try that, please?
How about you do this one? Oh, that's pretty. You want to do that one? It's kind of... As you can see, the back of the cereal box would make plain naked chipboard, and the front side is going to make pretty pattern chipboard. Alright, let's take a look. Oh yeah, that's nice and dark. That looks great.
Can I try?
Yep.
This spot.
Alright, we're going to let everything dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to put our card together. How does that sound?
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Okay, let's finish up our card. I thought I wanted a little bit of an embellishment, so what I'm going to do is I use my watercolor crayons to directly ink up this butterfly stamp, also from About Art Accents. And I'm just using red and orange to kind of go with the first panel that we had made with the gesso technique. And I can see that it's nice and inked up because it's shiny. And I'm just going to press it onto a little scrap of white. I save all my little scraps of cardstock and I trim them into rectangles, and then I store them in a little coupon organizer, and then I always have paper ready to go when I'm ready to stamp. And it's not perfect, but I think I like it. It looks kind of artsy. Here's one I've already cut out that we're going to use in the card. And I'm going to use a wheel stamp with some Hunter ink, and I am just going to make sure my card is on my magazine so I don't get my work surface dirty, and I am just going to stamp across here. It's a friendship wheel, so I'm just going to want to get a little extra texture in there. And I'm going to layer the panel we made in the first step. I'm going to use a little double-sided tape there. Actually, I'm going to use hot glue because I adhered this to chipboard, and so now it's like kind of substantial, and the hot glue will stick it down a little bit better. Stick that right on there. Gonna add in the embellishments that we made. Maybe just one. Maybe just that will do it. Yeah, I got a little crazy with the text. Might be a bit overkill, but at least you're getting some new ideas on how to craft a little greener. Stick that right in there. We will add our little cutout butterfly there with a little more hot glue. So I know that's going to stick it down really nice. Maybe I'll put it like that so it's like coming into the card a little bit. I can use my wheel stamp to stamp an envelope to go right along with it. Oh, I got them right here. Get an envelope and I will just use my wheel stamp again on that to make it match. And I'm just going to go right across the flap there.